Welcome to The Foundry, where leaders are forged daily. And now your host, George Roberts.
Welcome back, entrepreneurs. Today we have Ahmed Seirafi, founder of Andalusia Development Company. Welcome to the show, Ahmed.
Thank you, George. Appreciate it.
Well, I'd like to get started by just diving into how you got into real estate. And then I've got some really big questions for you about build to rent and how you pick your markets. So a lot of things I'd really like to discuss with you today. So how did you get into real estate?
I've always been, looking towards things that allow me to solve problems and to put things together. So, when I was finishing up my college, my professor guiding me towards a real estate brokerage career. So I started working after college as a broker with CB Richard Ellis. It's known as CBRE now. And I was a industrial office broker here in Southern California. Did that for many years, left the company, did it on my own for a while, and moved from that into construction management, running and managing a large construction firm, which did a lot of public work, which meant, schools, colleges, high schools, universities, public type buildings, city halls, things along those lines that involved any sort of construction regarding public funds or public work money. So I did a lot of construction management for a while. And then along the way, ever since brokering at CB and being an industrial and office broker, was investing and developing into properties along the way, and growing that kind of as a side hustle. And then now coming back full bore and focusing 100% on growing that aspect of the business of investment and development of commercial real estate, and most notably industrial and multifamily properties, which are my two niches that I try to stick with.
Great. And starting out as a broker, I know a lot of brokers don't ever end up owning any property.
Yeah.
I believe there's probably some mindset tips that you might have for us that help you to break from somebody who's just selling investments to people to actually becoming the investor, becoming the developer.
It's definitely a huge mindset shift because, being in an office full of commercial brokers and looking back on it now, you realize, like you said, George, how few of them actually own property. And these are the guys that are offering and sourcing and delivering large investment and development opportunities to their clients, but they're not doing it for themselves, right? They're not creating a syndication, a group, or a fund. They're not bringing partnerships, nor are they really investing with their clients into deals as well. So, it took many years for me to realize and understand that all this opportunity that these commercial brokers were putting together and putting forth to their clientele, they weren't taking advantage of it themselves because they didn't have the mindset. Their mindset was on the scarcity side, meaning I need to make a deal, I need to make a commission, which is fine. But if you're looking at the other side of the coin, the abundance mindset, saying, hey, I provide all these opportunities, I source these opportunities, I put these opportunities together and I deliver them to my clients, to my investors and my developers, meaning they need to take advantage of that themselves. So it definitely took a long time for me to see that and to start changing that mindset and understanding that I was the one that was bringing opportunity to them and not the other way around.
Yeah, exciting. And then you went into what I think many people would consider the epicenter of real estate investing. You went into development, and that's really exciting. Talk about risk. On the one hand, just working to sort of turn the crank one more time and get another deal, sell another investment. Now, I mean, you're taking things from bare land all the way through. So any further mindset shifts or anything you'd like to tell us about the story along the way?
I think a lot of people see development as being the pinnacle of real estate, right? Which it is to a certain extent, because you're taking something from nothing and creating something out of it, and you're ending up with a product at the very end, right? So they see it as sexy, they see it as exciting, they see it as the top of the food chain, the top of the pyramid. But at the same time, it's also conceived as very difficult, very costly, very as we say, it takes time. You got to be a patient person for development, which is true. and they see it as very hard and very difficult. But if you break it down into the most smallest pieces, it really isn't rocket science. It just is a lot of boxes you need to check off along the way, right? So, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you do a real estate development? One step at a time. So my first building that I built was a 6,000 square foot strip mall with 7-Eleven and a few other companies as a tenant. And I was there every day. I was sourcing material. I was going over plans. I was hiring the labor. I was hiring the subcontractors. I was getting the permits. I was running around like crazy. But that small development taught me everything I needed to learn about any sort of development, from the very beginning on sourcing property and putting a budget and underwriting that property, to financing, to the construction, to the leasing, and then the sale of that property. So it wasn't rocket science, but there is a lot of steps. And if you check off the boxes in order, you can come up with a profitable and, productive and successful development.
Yeah, well, I love it. Obviously, a lot of organization skills there, and great set of skills to have. Not everybody is great at developments. It's difficult. It's hard for a reason. So you moved into your two niches from there. You went into industrial and multifamily. So I guess just tell us a little bit more about your niches and how you ended up.
Yeah, no. As I know, and everyone in real estate knows, there's a lot of paths you can pursue in real estate. You can go everything from a financing and hard money side to a investment, to a development, to a broker, to a realtor. There's so many paths in real estate you can take to make money, passive or active investors or what have you not. And the way I found my two niches and why I'm trying to double down in those niches and become as much as an expert as I can is, one is industrial buildings. I grew up as an industrial broker, spending time at CB doing industrial deals here in Southern California. And so I know industrial from start to finish. I know what is considered a good development, what's a bad development, what's a good design, what's a bad design, what's a good street, what's a bad street. And with all that experience doing industrial deals, I felt that knowing all that would be a good path. And it is a good return on investment, especially in today's climate. And multifamily is something that, we've always been investing in, and multifamily is always good. It never really goes down as long as you operate it correctly. So focusing on what I know, industrial, which I've been doing all my life as a broker, and then focusing on multifamily, which I've been investing in a very long time, are the two niches that I'm most comfortable with, because I decided to, like I said, double down and put all my eggs in those two baskets, and to really try and become as much of an expert on those two types of product as I can.
Right. So yeah, you've obviously done other things. You started with retail, and then I believe you're also doing build to rent, correct?
Correct. Yeah. First one right now. Yeah.
Exciting. And is that the one in Dallas?
Yeah, north of Dallas, we got close to 300 townhomes planned as a build for rent community. We're actually moving dirt on that property right now. It was an 89-acre purchase north of Dallas, and a lot of that is in the wetlands and flood area. So
Right.
we will have a large portion of that development, which would be natural area, and then another 1/3 of that property will be the development of the townhome community.
Exciting. And
Yeah.
I believe that's pretty much par for the course when you're doing these build to rents. I mean, this is north of Dallas, as you say, obviously not nowhere near the city proper. You're talking about 89 contiguous acres.
Yeah.
So it seems to be like the plan is generally, rather than trying to assemble, like you usually would assemble if you're going to do something closer to the city center, but you're just buying some more relatively rural areas. Any tips for us in site selection for build to rent?
Whether it's built for rent, like these townhomes that I'm building, or if it's industrial property here in Southern California that I'm building and I'm assembling land for that, or if it's some of my multifamily developments that I have here locally as well. What I look for are a few things. One, everyone's talking about location, location, location. Yeah, that's a given in real estate, right? But I also look for things that are on the peripheral. Like, I don't need to be going after property, like you said, in the city center or downtown areas or right around the the core, right? Because that has a lot of competition. The prices are high. I look for the edges. I look for the outskirts. I look for the path of development. So I'm looking for new freeway expansions and new off ramps, and the roads are getting widened in the community, or the city or the public works department is coming in and putting in larger sewer and water lines because the growth in that area is continuing. So I look for those types of indicators when I look for land, because, you know, if I want to go fight downtown competition and going after, you know, property and going up against, you know, companies like Greystar and these big multifamily developers, I don't have the bandwidth for that. I don't have the you know, the financial resources to go after these, you know, very expensive downtown properties. So I look around the peripheral, the edges, the path of development, where things are going, where there's new schools coming up, or the new roads, like I said, the new off ramps, the public works expansions and improvement projects and things like that. So yeah, access and location are very important, but I also look for those other indicators that show that the area is growing or it's poised to grow.
Yeah, perfect. Better to come in early days with
Yeah.
something like this. That's where it really makes the most sense. And I see you are a Californian, but
Yeah.
looks like you're doing most of your development outside of California these days. Tell us about, in general, how do you find the markets, the metros that you're interested in working in?
You know, like we were chatting before the call here, everyone looks for the basics. They look for employment, they look for return on investment, they look for job growth, they look for you know, things, net migration areas and stuff like that, which are very important. But I also want to look for communities that are business friendly, right? If I'm going to go in and develop property, or I'm going to go in and buy multifamily investments, or I'm going to go in there and put my money and my effort into an area, I want to go to an area that's also business friendly, right? I want to go to an area where the local community and the local government work hand in hand in trying to do what's best for the area. And if that means more housing, more development, or rehabbing of older properties, and they want to see things happen, that's where I want to be. I want to be working hand in hand with the community as well as the local government, and not having to work against them like I do, or I have done in many areas here in California, because it seems like in California, there's a lot of pushback with anything you try to do. So I'm looking for business-friendly, community-friendly areas as well.
Yeah, amen, brother. I'll tell you that whenever you start a development, and I've seen it, I've seen the pitchforks come out.
Yeah.
It's a completely different situation when you have the city and the community on your side. And certainly there are certain communities that are more apt to embrace development. Some areas know that they're growing and like that growth. In certain areas, I think maybe they don't have that sort of growth mindset, so to speak.
100%. I mean, they come and say, yeah, we need it, but just not here. Do it somewhere else. I'm like, okay.
Always.
Yeah. I said, well, I tried to do it somewhere else and they told me to do it over here. What do you want me to do? You know?
Right. And the city, of course, is always a little bit more enlightened. They realize we'd like new tax dollars. We got to pay for these schools. We got to widen these roads, and we've got to have some tax revenue to do it. It's a lot easier, as you said, for the citizens to say, just build it down the road. Thank you.
Well, that's what they told me. So that's why I'm here, you know?
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, great niches to be in, industrial and the build to rent, multifamily. Yeah, we have a huge housing crisis going on now. As you mentioned, multifamily is generally not a bad thing to have at any time, but now with this tremendous housing crisis, I don't think that that's news to any of our listeners. Most of them are investors, either actively or passively, and they've probably benefited from those tailwinds over the last several years. But any comments on the housing crisis and maybe any solutions that you might have? What can we do to make things better?
Yeah, well, it's a good question, because, you know, we are underhoused across the country. We're underhoused, 5 million housing units, whether it's multifamily or single family.
At least.
But then but at the same time, that baby boomer generation is retiring, right?
Right.
So a lot of them are leaving their single family and wanting to go to smaller, whether it's multifamily, townhomes, condos, something like that. So you got to find that balance, right? So do you need to build more single family because there's more demand for it, or do you build more multi-family or townhome type developments because you have a lot of those boomers looking to downsize? And it's a little bit different for every market. But what I try to do is I try to look for that long-term demand, right? So what I build is for my family office. It's for us alone, right? If it's industrial, I build the sell, I take those profits and roll it into the large scale multifamily projects that I have, and those are kept for the long term in the portfolio. But if I'm going to build for the long term in the portfolio, I want to build smartly. I want to build the right way. I want to build a project that I'm not going to have to touch it for 10 or 20 years because I built it so well at the very beginning. The design is right. The layout is right. The material is good quality. The HVAC system is high end because it's going to last me 10 or 20 years and not 5 or 7 like other companies and stuff like that. So I want to build for the long term, but that long term also means who's your ideal clientele? Who's the ideal tenant? Is that going to be a market rate apartment project that is open to anyone to rent? Or are you going to go maybe senior and it's going to be 55 plus active and it's age restricted community where you may have a little bit more amenities and spend a little bit more money on that side, but you have your tenants that are moving in and they're staying there for 3, 5, or 7 years versus the 2 to 3 year on other, market rate multifamily properties. So it's all in that balance. And I'm a big proponent on market surveys. Some projects I will do 2 or 3 market surveys and market studies on just to get a different opinion from the different professionals about where this community is going, where this area is going, and what's most in demand. So I plan for the future. I plan for the long term. And by doing that, I think I'm putting myself in a good position of having a pretty successful project because I'm not building for now. I'm not building for the current market. I'm building for the next 10 or 20 years and making sure that project is going to be viable and occupied and in demand for the next 20 years plus.
Yeah, very valuable for people that are entering that space built to rent. It is different than the build to sell space, to be sure. You mentioned a lot of great demographic trends. So the things that everybody looks at are things like job growth, home price growth, population growth, but you're really picking it apart on a much deeper level there when you look at baby boomers downsizing. Yep. Certainly those smaller homes are going to be much greater demand for people. If you're just a couple, you don't need all that. Yeah. But the townhomes, I would imagine, maybe not as exciting to them. Of course, I mean, you get the value from the high density. So sure. A little trade-off there.
Every market's a little bit different because some markets have a lot of people downsizing, some you have less. Maybe in the suburbs, it's going to be a lot more newer families. And then when you get closer to the more established area, you're going to have a lot more people downsizing. So they need more of that multifamily or that condo type product. So it kind of like you need to evaluate each area independently. Just because you're doing multifamily doesn't mean multifamily applies for everyone. It could be age restricted multifamily. It could be built for rent. It could be market rate. It could be all 1 and 2 bedrooms because it's, new young couples, or it could be all 3 bedrooms because you're in an established area with a lot of growing families and they need a 2nd and 3rd bedroom for their children and stuff like that. So they're all a little bit different. Just because people are saying multifamily is the way to go, I mean, that may be true, but you got to make sure you're doing the right kind of multifamily.
Yeah, I love it. We don't all have to be, going after the same flavor, hitting the same note. There's 100%. A lot more to it.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, there's so many variations to it.
Excellent.
And they're all in need too. They're all in demand. They're all in need.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, I mean, I've seen both ends of it. I mean, I see the value to creating these very expensive, more luxury or custom homes. They make a lot of money. But then these build to rent is serving the other end of the market. And because you get the high density, that can also be very lucrative. So it's good that we're seeing a wider range or wider array of products being constructed these days. So I understand one of the other things you like to do is help to scale and grow businesses. So maybe you've got some tips for us.
Yeah. This, George, and so do I. We've both been in this business for a while. We've both seen a lot of success stories, but we've seen a lot of horror stories as well. And, I do a lot of public speaking. I do a lot of, and I'm starting to do some more and more online education. And the thing that I hate seeing the most are people who are getting started in our business, getting established into real estate, wanting to get into investing and wanting to get into developing. And the resources out there for them are not, there's not a lot, right? And the resources that people do see are pretty much funnels for other people to invest into other people's investments, which is fine. But I want to provide and give value to people where they can go and learn about development and learn about doing it the right way and learn about not getting taken advantage of or losing their money or going and getting into something where their life savings are wiped out, right? Because we all know that there's good contractors out there and there's bad contractors. There's good architects and bad architects. There's good consultants and bad consultants. And I'm really wanting to guide people on knowing the right steps to take and how to vet and find those types of people that will actually help them in their investment development journey versus getting taken advantage of. Because we've all heard those stories that, hey, you know, I've paid my contractor 80-90%, but he's only 20% finished on the work, and I call him and he doesn't call me back, and he went out of business and all this kind of stuff, and their life savings are on the line now. And I hate hearing about those things. So I want to do everything I can to help people do it the right way, build better, and have a successful project or an investment. Because, you know, George, there's pretty much unlimited amounts of opportunity out there. So it's not like we're going to be competing with each other or anyone we come across anytime soon. So
Definitely not anytime soon.
Yeah. So might as well help each other out and make sure people, you know, do it the right way and come out successfully, because that doesn't only impact them, it impacts their families, it impacts their communities, it impacts their legacy and the long term. So, you know, they worked so hard all their lives to save some money and they want to do something with it. I want to make sure I help them do it the right way.
Yeah. And where can they find those resources?
Well, right now, you know, I'm pretty active on Instagram. You can find me on Instagram. I got a website and some educational material coming out here real soon. But if you follow me on Instagram, you'll have links to all that additional information. And plus, I'm constantly putting some reels and posts and things out there on how to do it the right way, you know, about your billing, about your contractors, about, you know, figuring out what to do and how to do it and what order and who to choose. There's all sorts of information I put on my Instagram.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, like you got things out there like how I got screwed by a contractor and things like that. Yeah. Good stuff. I love it. You know, more people need to talk about the downside, the mistakes, the pitfalls.
Yeah.
That's, I think, where the real value is.
Yeah.
Now, oh yeah, go ahead.
No, it's like, it's important because you think your broker, even your broker or your agent that's working for you is trying to protect you, but really, you know, they may be just trying to get a commission, you know what I mean? Which is fine. Everyone needs to get paid, but let's make sure they're making their commission and representing you the best way possible. And I want to teach people that and how to find that and how to identify that.
Absolutely. Well, let's go back to development for a minute. I haven't asked you how you fund your developments.
So I'm a big proponent on self-funding. So, you know, as a family office, built up equity and properties over the years. So right now we're self-funded, right? But I am looking at now starting to open that up to friends and family and with people who are in the business that I know, because I want to start using my opportunities and my developments as a way of creating relationships with other people that I want to do business with in the future. So I will now start opening up, you know, tranches of investment money for other guys that I know who are investors and developers across the country. I say, hey, do you want to get into my project? You know, this is what I got going on. And a lot of them want to diversify. And they're like, yeah, I can't put all my money into my project. I want to put it into other projects and other investments. The same way I'm doing. I have now invested into my friends' projects, which I'm completely passive on, which is a big deal for me because I have no control over it whatsoever. But they're really experienced and skilled developers. I've invested into a Four Seasons condo. I've invested into a Montage hotel. I've invested into products and deals that I would have never done myself, nor would I put money into, except that I'm now investing with people who are highly skilled, highly experienced, and highly successful and diversifying. Right. So I want to do that myself and allow other people the opportunity to invest with me now.
Yeah. Okay, great. And that's the way to do it if you want to make sure you make it through the next downturn from one self-funded developer to another.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that are not going to get washed away with the tide. Now, you mentioned having a family office. So rather than going after other family office money, for example, you're opening it up to more of what you might call the retail investors.
To a certain extent, yeah. So if it's a syndication group or a fund to fund or an investment group, I would open it up to some of those, maybe a handful per project, depending on the investment size, and allow, certain individuals, friends, family, acquaintances, people I've, come across and who are in the same business, because the most important thing is for me is I want to create those relationships with other real estate professionals, right? And that is by investing into each other's projects, right? But I also want to have a team around me that if I'm having a problem on a project or if they're having a difficulty, us as investors who are active in real estate can come together like a superpower and like a team and come together and figure out on how to make the best decision and move that project or that investment forward. And the best way of doing that is having a bunch of investors who are active in the market as well, and they all know the best practices, that we can come together with those best practices and solve any problem we come across.
Excellent. And then before we head into the lightning round, I would like to ask you one last question. Obviously, you're somebody who built up your business from the very get-go to where it is today. What would you say has been the greatest lesson in leadership you learned along the way?
Is learning to identify your skills and your successes, because I think the society that we're in now and that we've been in for a while it's about being humble, and it's about being quiet and just putting your head down and working, which is fine, right? But if you're not taught to learn how to identify your successes and your strong suits and your superpowers, how are you going to go out and take that and combine it with an abundance mindset and go out and succeed and win and have a bunch of successful projects or successful deals, right? If you don't see where you're good at and how to apply those skill sets, you're going to be in trouble. So my biggest epiphany in this business was when I started to realize, like, wow, I'm making a lot of people a lot of money based off of 100% of my work skill set and experience. I need to start doing that for myself. So once I made that turn that I can do it for myself and not just for everyone else, that's when things really started to change for me.
That's beautiful. So let's head into it. Are you ready for the lightning round?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So tell me something about one of your real estate markets that most people would know.
What about one of my markets that most people would know? That one of my developments in Dallas, Texas is very business friendly, and I'm getting plans and permits done in less than 12 months, which would take 24 to 36 months here in California.
Love it.
Yeah.
What's some advice you'd give your younger self?
Ooh, is what I just talked about, is that abundance mindset, learning your skills and what you're inherently good at and recognizing that and applying it to yourself versus just doing it for everyone else. So if you're a master carpenter and you're working for a framing company, learn how to take those skills that you have and apply them to yourself to grow not only yourself, but your family and your business as well.
Excellent advice.
Yeah.
But I have to say, there's also a lot of bad advice going around in real estate.
Sure.
What would you say is the worst real estate advice you've come across?
Ooh, the worst real estate advice I've come across is contractors when they're asking for 30, 40, 50% of a job up front because they are unable to go out and buy the material and to mobilize on a job site themselves. Meaning if the contractor is not able to show up and start the work by himself and he needs you and your money to get started, that may be an issue. Now, I understand if they want a 5 or 10% deposit to mobilize and get on a job site and get started, but if they're asking for large amounts of money up front, that is a major red flag.
Absolutely. All right, let's take a nod to the randomness of the universe here. I got my random question card, so just tell me when to stop cutting.
Oh, geez, check that out, man. I feel like I'm in Vegas. All right, let's stop.
All right, here we go.
Yep.
Oh, shoot, that was what I asked on the last one.
All right, do
unbelievable. What's your favorite reality show? We can't do that again. All right, so what historical sporting event would you like to witness?
Ooh, the Masters.
All right.
Yeah, I like to be front row VIP for the Masters.
All right. Okay.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
All right. Name a book that's helped to forge you as a leader and as an entrepreneur.
You know what, that would be, it could be a couple of them, but I forget the name of the book, but it's the first book by by Jack Welch, the ex CEO of GE, where, out there where you're at. And that book about Jack Welch, and the name of it skips me, but it's pretty well known. It's one of the first books about him, taught about how he was not an expert at anything, but a really good manager and a really good people person. And he knew how to spot talent and where to put the talent to have a successful business, right? And it taught me about learning to spot talent elsewhere, find it, and harness it and put it to work.
Excellent. Now, can you tell us how a failure or misstep has set you up for later success?
A failure and misstep. Well, that would be trying to force a project, right? Don't fall in love with it. You got to remember, at the end of the day, real estate is a business, right? You're not buying your dream home. You're not buying your retirement home. When you get into investment and development, you got to treat it 100% as a business. So if you're trying to force the numbers, or trying to force the underwriting, or trying to force the project on a piece of land or in an area that it doesn't work, don't do it. Because I see so many people fall in love with the dream, but that dream does not apply to reality. So don't force it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Outstanding. Can you send us out with a quote to help forge our leaders, or our listeners, as leaders and entrepreneurs?
Ooh, man, you're the tough one, right? A quote. Oh, those are tough. Don't wait till tomorrow. You don't know. Everyone, push things off. Oh, I'll start that podcast tomorrow. I'll start that project tomorrow. No, it will always be tomorrow. If you don't do it today, it will never happen. So don't
Carpe diem.
tomorrow. That's right. 100%.
All right. So I want to thank you for taking the time to come and enlighten our audience with your knowledge and experience. I think there's a lot for people here, and hopefully if you can even save one person from a very expensive mistake, I would say the time is well spent. I'd like to make sure that our viewers and listeners can get in touch with you. They've got a question, they want to reach out, they want to learn more about you. Where can they do that?
Yeah, great. No, I am most active on Instagram right now, just because that just is kind of the place to be for me. So they can find me on Ahmed Builds Better on Instagram, and I'm constantly active on that. So that's the best way of getting hold of me right now.
All right, that's great. And I believe as an added bonus, if you go out to Instagram, they get to see your, is that your private jet over there?
No, that's not mine, but that's one of the goals. I've
Okay.
finding a nice house and a fancy car are great, but I just want to push the envelope and force myself and push myself to success, and that's one of my goals, or the bucket list, or the vision board right there. Yeah.
All right. Amazing. Thank you so much for the value you're creating for the community. Ahmed.
Awesome. Thank you, George.